Well, now we're going to switch gears to learn about nutrition and weight management with Dr. Ybarra. And Dr. Ybarra is a pediatric endocrinologist with a special focus on childhood weight management. She's recently joined the Division of Pediatric Endocrinology at the Children's Hospital Health Sciences here in London to work as a childhood obesity specialist. She worked as an attending physician at the University of Sao Paulo's weight management outpatient clinic for 4 years. Dr. Ybarra was also a founding member of the Adolescent Bariatric Surgery Multidisciplinary Clinic. She joined the Childhood Obesity Research Team at St. Justine Hospital, University of Montreal, with whom she continues to collaborate. Dr. Ybarra, welcome. And there's the clicker.
I just press here. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here today. We're going to talk a little bit about weight management, and I try to be more specific to Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So I have no financial sponsors or disclosures. In order to mitigate potential bias, recommendations are consistent with published literature. And we acknowledge that this is the land and the area we call London is traditional territory of the Chippewa of Thames and Oneida of Thames and the Munson Delaware Nation. So we are deeply grateful to have the opportunity to be in this place. So the agenda today is to talk about a little bit what is obesity, why we develop obesity, the consequences, what can we do about it, and some tricks and tips for you guys at home. So obesity is the excess weight, basically the accumulation of fat in your body that you can measure through the BMI, which is the body mass index. In order to calculate that, you divide your weight by the square feet of your height, and we use growth charts based on the World Health Organization. And here in Canada, we have a specific one that we can look at for boys and girls, but obviously I just put the boys here. And there's a different classification here in Canada as well regarding age groups. So when you are 2 to 5 years old, there's a little bit of more careful classification when you talk about risk of overweight, obesity, and severe obesity. Whereas when you are 5 to 19 years old, you go directly to the classification of overweight, obesity, and severe obesity. And this is just based on the percentile that you are in the curve. So why we develop obesity, right? So there are so many factors that play a role here. We have prenatal influences, biological influences, psychological influences. These we would say like it's inside the person. And then we can look at outside the person when early developmental influences, environmental influences, economic influences, and social influences. And if we look at the percentage, we would say that genetics play a role 50 to 90% of obesity, and then epigenetics or environmental plays 10 to 50%. So we can act on more 10 to 50% only. So it's basically a balance. And you look at the energy conservation, so what your intake and energy expenditure, right? So when to develop obesity, especially in Duchenne, you have more energy conservation than energy expenditure. And it's easy to explain. So you have steroids, it's one of the main treatments, which increase the appetite and also promote deposition of truncal and visceral adiposity in your body. And this is not your fault. At the same time, you have decreased mobility and you also have activity restrictions that also contribute for you not to use and use your body and have energy expenditure. On top of that, there are other factors that play a very important role, such as mental health concerns, increased time and financial pressures on the families, parental caregiver health and mental health also, and other socioeconomic factors. And in the past 2-3 years, we have COVID, which increased more and more the risk of obesity. Something that I wanted to point and I wanted to take the time to talk about is screen time and obesity. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the end, but screen time increased eating. It's proof that it increased eating while viewing. Exposure. It has a high exposure to high calorie, low nutrient food, beverage marketing. So you're paying attention to what you're seeing. You're not paying attention to what you're eating. On top of that, what you see usually markets for things that are unhealthy, most of all. And if you stay online or with the light that comes from the TV or the mobile or the iPad, it increases your awake signs that you have in your body. So you usually reduce your sleep duration, which increases later on all the hormones that play a role in obesity. And we're going to talk a little bit about that more later. Another thing that it's very, very important and plays an important role in obesity, why we develop obesity, is the built environment. This includes everything around you and around where your life is. So your neighborhood, how many grocery stores you have around you, how many parks you have around you. Is it easy to access the parks? How many activities you have available in your neighborhood and around you, and all that have a very plays a major role in you having or not having access to things that will make it easier your life or harder to develop or not obesity. There's also a lot of work into social network and obesity. Social network nowadays is a term that you use to talk about everybody that it's related to you socially. And it can be online or your online friends, but it also is your friends at school, your friends at work, people that you're related to, your family, and everybody that surrounds you. And it's been proven that if you are around people, people with obesity are usually surrounded by other social network that have obesity as well. So it's important for you, if you make a major change in your social network, it's easier for you to make changes in your life too. So what are the consequences of being with obesity? There are several of them. I'm not gonna talk a lot specific of anyone, but you can have neurological, psychological, pulmonary, and sleep apnea is the most important one. Cardiovascular risk, there's several as well. Musculoskeletal, such as pain, endocrine, such as type 2 diabetes. And what's the big deal about it? So it can impact your glucose metabolism and you can develop type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes is a transitional state. It can take up to 8 to 10 years when you have pre-diabetes to develop diabetes, and obesity plays a major role in you having pre-diabetes and developing and keeping your body in that inflammatory state where you develop diabetes later on. You can have increased blood pressure. You can have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is the most common cause of liver failure later in life. So you start with a healthy liver and progresses to cirrhosis. And a lot of other impacts that you can have in your body, such as sleep apnea, sleepidemia, you can have reflux, you can have mental health issues, and all this comes along with you developing obesity or not. So what can we do about it, right? And I think that's the main goal for me to be here today. So Canada's food guide recommends this plate, and it's very visual for you guys to try to mimic at home and try to use it as a guide. So half of your plate should be vegetables, fruits, and salads. You should have 1/4 of eat protein foods and 1/4 are whole grain foods. And this has an important reason for that. So when you choose veggies, you're choosing a lot of fiber in your food that makes you full. So you're choosing healthy things that makes you full. When you choose protein as well, it chooses some special foods that makes you full easier, and the fiber in the whole grains as well. And why is that? Is the whole grains you absorb later in your digestive tract, and because of that, it gives you the sign for you to be full. So this is what Canada's food guide recommends, and it's a very easy image for you to follow. There's also the Canadian 24-hour movement guidelines that talks about sweat, step, sleep, and sit. I think here for you guys, I made 2 suggestions for us. Instead of sweat, I did it swim, because this is the most recommended exercise for Duchenne kids. And instead of steps, I said move, because you guys can move and keep active without just walking. So that's another idea. And there's been studies regarding the move part, which are very interesting, that says snack exercise. So every 1 or 2 or 3 hours that you're doing nothing, you snack exercise, which means you do 2 minutes of intensive exercise as much as you can. So if you can only move your arms, you just exercise for 1 minute a lot your arms, or you can do just slow little bit of exercise within your daily basis, and that prevents cardiovascular disease later in life. Regarding sleep, there is a specific number of hours that each age group should sleep, and it's very important for you to follow this. And the reason is because it's while we sleep that we produce most of the good hormones of the appetite. So the hormones that keep us our hunger low, so we don't feel so hungry during the day, they are produced overnight when we're sleeping. So it's very important that, as well as we rest and we wake up with good energy to spend our day in a better state. Yeah, so I think that's the things that I wanted to say. And regarding mental health, lifestyle strategies, when I recently had this lecture with the guys from CHIO, and they were saying that in order to prevent you of becoming with any mental health issues, you should do, and most of the things are very common to preventing obesity as well. So I found that was really interesting. Get enough sleep, eat healthy diet, get physically active as much as you can, get mindful, like yoga, mindful practice, meditation. And one thing that I thought it was very interesting was to spend time outside in nature. So nature plays a very important role for you to prevent you to having mental health problems. Of course, if you've been doing all this and you've been trying, but you're still stuck with being with obesity and you need some help, there are drugs that are approved here in Canada for you to treat and help you out with obesity. In order to get them, you would have to have access to a specific doctor that would guide you through. It's not something that your family physician or your neurologist, unfortunately, would be able to prescribe it to you. But I think if you have a pediatric endocrinologist that could help you through, there are some options available here in Canada. There's also, in the end of the light of the tunnel, bariatric surgery is also an option that you can talk about if it's something that you're entitled to. So in order to treat and prevent obesity, you start with the patient, but basically you need the family with it. So it's not something that you should only target to your kid or anyone specific in the house. It's something that the whole family should try to change and do as well. And it's always good to have a multidisciplinary team with it to talk about, so the social worker, the physician, the dietitian. There's also a nurse, exercise specialist or kinesiologist, and a psychologist available. And you go through the nutrition tips, physical activities, drugs, and in the end, bariatric surgery. There's also been proved that the successful weight management, it's usually associated with frequency and duration contact with the team. So as much as you can see the team, or it's possible through the system for you to get in touch, even if it's online or in person, the more you are connected to the team taking care of this, the better outcomes you would have. And then I brought you guys some tricks and tips about it. So the first one would be make at least half of your plate veggies. And for me, I would say start with it before. So even have your salad before you have your meal. That will help with two things. First of all, you will have, like when you get home and you're very, very hungry, you kill this first part with the healthy part, with the veggies. Second of all, it will take more time for you to eat because you'll have to go and get your second plate. And this will help you with the 15 minutes rule. I don't know if you ever heard about it, is that don't don't take your seconds before 15 minutes because it takes at least 15 minutes for your body to understand that you ate. Of course, our eyes, it takes only, maybe you just want more, especially when you have delicious food at home and it smells good and everything. But if you take the time, sometimes you can understand that you are not hungry anymore and you don't need your second plate. So if you do 2 plates already, the first one with the salad and then the second one with the food, it helps you out to take this time and enjoy your meal longer and make your brain understand that you're not hungry anymore. The other tip is eat protein with every meal or snack. So add a cheese or add a yogurt or add hummus if you're vegetarian to your snacks or to your meal. Never have, try not to avoid to have only carbs, for example, spaghetti with no meat balls on the tomato sauce, because it will make you hungry before. The reason of that is because carbs are absorbed quicker than proteins. It takes less time for our body to digest them, and then they get absorbed, and then we don't feel like we ate 1 hour ago. So for you to feel that you're satisfied, that you don't need to eat anymore, if you eat protein, will keep you with this feeling. Another tip that I think it's very, very, very valuable is drink water with your meal and drink water every time you think you're hungry. And the reason for that is because, first of all, water has no calories. Second, you're hydrating, so it's good for your body. And the third reason is because there is some confusion in our brain regarding thirst and hungry. So when your stomach is like making that sound that you're hungry but you're not sure, maybe it's because the sign that you get from your brain, if you're hungry or if you're thirsty, it goes to it's the same message. So it's hard for you to really know which is which. And of course, eating and snacking gives you much more pleasure than drinking a bottle of water that has no fun at all. So you tend to go with the experience that you have in your heart, that it's more delicious, which then you tend to eat instead of drinking water. So if you remind yourself that, oh, maybe I'm just thirsty, and drink a glass of water, that will help you out to understand if you are hungry or thirsty, and will keep you longer without snacking or eating. This is another simple things, especially now during the winter here. Begin with a vegetable soup. The soup makes the same thing as the starting with the salad. Oh, this is something that I always tell my patients, and it's a very easy trick that you can try at home, is use smaller plates and forks. So if you eat with a smaller fork, you will eat slower, and if you eat slower, you give more the same theory. You give more time to your brain to understand that you're eating and that you're satisfied and that you don't need to eat more. Another thing that I always tell my patients is, once you eat one bite, rest your cutlery on the table, because you tend to, while you're how do you say that in English? You're chewing your food. You're already preparing your next fork to eat more, and then we eat so fast. By the end, I always say that to my family, like, it takes me 40 minutes to cook and 10 minutes for them to eat everything that I just took me so long to cook. So try to rest your cutlery, and then you just eat slower, swallow first, and then you start prepping your next bite. And it's already been studied and proved, so that's why I brought you a paper about it. This is, I think it's the hardest thing to do, eat mindfully, but the main reason I brought you that is because it's very, very common for people and families to have the TV on, or you have your iPhone with you and you're just scrolling down the news or messages or emails while you're just eating. So you're not paying attention in anything that you're eating, and that won't help you or help your brain to understand that you ate and that you're satisfied. So if you're eating, just take that 15-20 minutes to sit down and eat. If you are with your family, which is something that it's recommended as well for the treatment of obesity, is for you to make a family meal all together. Try to enjoy talking to each other and knowing how your day was, and eating slowly. Yeah, so again, screen time is linked with low fruit, vegetable consumption, and high intake of unhealthy snacks, chips, biscuits, and chocolates. Yeah, there's many studies that's shown that screen time during mealtime, it's not beneficial for anybody. This is something that it's depending on your taste. If you spice it up your meals, the more spices you have, you feel more full and you eat less. And soluble fiber, like whole foods, like instead of having plain wheat, have whole wheat. Instead of having plain rice, have whole rice. The reason for that is because the more grains you have, it takes longer to get digested. And why is that important, right? So there are many of the hormones that sense the signal to your brain. There are some in your stomach right after you finish eating that shows, oh, okay, my stomach is full, so I don't need to eat that much anymore. But the most powerful one is sent in the end of digestive tract. So if you get your food plain, it gets absorbed very easily and in the beginning of your digestive tract, and you don't have that sign so strong as if you have whole foods or a protein, and that sense gets in the end of your digestive tract, and then the sign gets there and they say, oh, okay, so there is food here. Let's tell your brain that you don't need to eat anymore. So that's also another reason for the 15-minute rule. So if you think about what I've told you guys, everything is correlated, right? So it's not one thing that will make it easier, but it's if you try doing a little bit of everything, in the end, they all get the same message to your body, and it helps you out not to be with obesity. But I always say that we can easily get frustrated with obesity because it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, and your goal takes a lot of time to get accomplish it. So try to set a goal that is realistic and possible to achieve. Try to make small changes throughout your week, your day, or your month without aiming like, oh, because it's very common for people to come to me, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds in a week. You're not going to get that. I can make it, you gain 10 pounds in a week maybe, but I can't make you lose 10 pounds in a week. It will take longer, and the body keeps trying to regain that weight. Like, you have to understand that our body, he saves you from starving. So that's the main mechanism. So he's always trying for you not to starve. So once you lose a little bit of weight, he thinks, oh my God, maybe this person is starving. Let me get your hormones up, your hungry up, everything up, so that he doesn't starve and he survives, right? And then you just regain everything you lost. So it's a process, it's a long process, and it's little changes that will make the difference. Yeah, I guess that's it. I just want to thank Stasia, who helped me out with sharing her knowledge about it, and Craig for inviting me.
Dr. Ybarra, thank you. Rochelle from...
One question online, you had made mention about moving, and somebody online asked, you mentioned about moving the arms when in the wheelchair. Are there any restrictions for a person with Duchenne, or is it best to do as much activity as possible, or should it be restricted in any way?
Oh, very good question. I think that's probably individual to each patient, but I'm sure if you're feeling good about doing that certain activity is not doing any bad for you, I think you can do as much as you can. And if you can't do it all the time, I would try doing this neck exercise, because I think it's funny. You can put an alarm on your phone and just do like 1 minute of as intense as you can for exercise, and then just pause, and in the next hour you do it again.
Great. Any questions from the floor? All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ybarra, very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming.